Hello everybody, I'm the Lost Boy with your video game news and my opinions, and thanks for watching. If you enjoy this video or agree with what I said, feel free to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and why not that little bell icon while you're at it. Seems like nothing really earth-shattering happened this week, other than the release of Octopath Traveler, which seems to be actually shattering the earth. One semi-notable fact I noticed is a little outside of my usual area of focus. It actually has to do with Magic the Gathering and other similar collectible card games. The CBC, or Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, is reporting that Magic cards, as well as other similar products made in the US, are now subject to a 10% tariff. Magic cards are now part of the tariffs that the Canadian government has placed on a total of $12.6 billion worth of items imported from the US to Canada. These tariffs were levied in response to sudden and sizable tariffs on goods imported from Canada to the US, which were put in place by the US government near the end of May this year. Some retailers of collectible card games have managed to get a little bit ahead of the situation by stockpiling before the tariffs went into effect, but they warn that price increases will be inevitable once the tariffs begin to affect their bottom line. That means, if you're in Canada and you're looking to invest in any of these games, now may be the best time to buy before prices go up. As for video game news, since nothing really big seems to be going on, I thought I'd take the opportunity to do a bit of house cleaning and cover some items that have been slipping through the cracks. The first item up is the Red Dead Redemption 2 Multiple Special Edition Fiasco. Several problems exist here. Number one, why do we need multiple special editions at all? I know these developers and publishers just love to dump a bunch of digital and plastic crap in the special or ultimate or uber fancy editions of basically every AAA game that gets released. But why must there now be multiple special versions? This is very consumer unfriendly, and console gamers are in a group of gamers that mostly prefers just being able to play their games with no complications. Trying to decode which version of the special edition of a game you want to buy is confusing, annoying, and unnecessary. But if that's bad, how about the Red Dead Redemption 2 Collector's Box? Not Collector's Edition, mind you. The word edition would give consumers the idea that they were buying an actual product, when in fact the Collector's Box does not actually contain a game at all. Seriously, there's just some crap in a box. No game whatsoever included for $100 US or $130 Canadian. I have read online that the reasoning behind this is so that purchasers of digital versions need not buy a second physical copy of the game in order to own the collector's swag along with their digital version. Really, I'm not too sure if these jokers know what the word collectors even means. I don't really have too much else to say here, other than to express my disgust. And I only hope that the majority of folks could see how many better ways you could find to murder $100. Next up is an item that's been showing up here and there for the past several months, and this is the issue of game modification and or cheating that's happening on the Nintendo Switch. As covered in one of my previous videos, a hardware-level exploit was discovered near the end of April this year, which allowed hackers to insert custom code on the device, which in turn allowed for a multitude of use cases, from homebrew to custom avatars to actual game piracy. One particularly glaring example has been the intermittent reports of players cheating in online sessions of Splatoon 2, even including bringing unwitting players into as-yet unreleased game maps. Other reports have some players using infinite ink tanks, infinite specials, and other similar game-breaking behaviors. This has led the community at large to ponder why it seems that Nintendo has not managed to put any protections in its competitive online play other than the now useless locking down of the actual hardware. A video I watched recently even covered how hardcore porn images are showing up in Super Mario Odyssey. New reports state that Nintendo is releasing a hardware revision to address the exploit. However, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million units with the unpatchable exploit are floating around out there in the wild. In fact, there's one in my living room right now, although I have no plans to hack it. To me, this means that Nintendo has a responsibility to monitor its multiplayer servers for any suspicious activity in order to maintain the high-quality experience that players are used to in the modern age. I don't have a ton of hours to devote to honing my Splatoon skills, and it's hard enough to compete when I pop online to play with others who may have more experience than me, without the added frustration of cheaters who OP the hell out of their stats, weapons, and abilities. If Nintendo wants to maintain the position and growth of the Switch platform, They'd better see to fixing this problem, and fast. It won't be too long before Smash Bros. Gets here. Just saying. The final item this week is some musings on Microsoft's Game Pass offering. The new service was announced early last year and was first made available exclusively for Xbox Live Gold members. Later in the year, the service was expanded to be available to anyone and no longer requires the Live subscription unless you still want to play multiplayer games online. The price is $9.99 in the US and $11.99 in Canada, and for this price, subscribers were given access to a sizable library of downloadable digital games across both Xbox 360 and Xbox One platforms. Many detractors initially complained that the library had too many old and lesser-known games, with a newer AAA title like Halo 5 being the exception that proved the rule. In January of this year, Microsoft sweetened the deal by announcing that all future Xbox One exclusive titles would be made available on the Xbox Game Pass starting on the game's actual release date. For example, players at that time had been anticipating an upcoming release of Sea of Thieves, which would now be included day one in the Game Pass. For many people, this was a linchpin feature and cemented the Game Pass as a great value. Still, others argue that the scarcity of Xbox exclusives continues to be a very big problem. But for many, $10 per month for more games than they could ever play is a no-brainer. Certainly there are types of gamers that would benefit greatly from this, and others not at all. For myself, I don't get as much time to play games as I'd like to, and add to that the fact that I've accumulated a pretty respectable library of physical games, and the Game Pass doesn't really seem like a great choice for me. If I were newer to gaming, maybe getting an Xbox One as my first console, or switching over from Sony, I think I'd feel just about the opposite. For less than a quarter of the cost of a new AAA game, I can play tons of games for the entire month? If that's me, I'm asking where to sign up. The real reason I wanted to discuss this, though, is my concern that the Xbox Game Pass could actually be too good of a deal. What does that even mean, you ask? Well, as stated, the Game Pass is an excellent value for a certain type of gamer, but how does that translate for the value of the game? For example, rewind to a tentpole release prior to Game Pass, like a Halo or Gears release. How many copies do you think would sell in the first week? Now imagine that the average gamer could have just popped online on release day and simply paid $10 for Game Pass to try out the brand new Halo or Gears game instead. My fear is that if too many people sign up for Game Pass, that Microsoft might start to devalue its own brand and exclusive titles. Another negative consequence likely to crop up down the road, assuming that Microsoft doesn't just tank its Xbox division completely, is that after everyone has been trained to accept something like the Game Pass as the new normal mode of games consumption, consumers will likely begin to notice that, this is actually starting to be not such a great value after all. Maybe you decide, wait, screw this, I'm just going to go back to the old way, paying in full for my discs or downloads. But maybe by then, the landscape of the industry has changed too much, and the old ways are no longer an option. The more I see big companies like Microsoft and Sony pushing hard at streaming and subscription-based gaming plans, the less I like it. Sure, like I said before, I'm not really the type of consumer that the Game Pass is marketed to, but all I can say is that I hope this move doesn't begin to devalue the Xbox platform over time or lead to a situation where traditional methods of purchasing games begin to disappear. Let me know what your thoughts are on any of today's topics in the comments. I'm always interested to hear your opinions. If you're still with me, thanks for sticking around to the end. Always remember your happy thought, and I'll see you next time.